Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And it has been confirmed there will be the EGM for the Greens. They will discuss leaving government. They needed 50 votes to come forward from the party, from the that ruling cast of the party. They got over 100 votes. It's absolutely going to go ahead. And the feeling in the room is that they will leave the government. This is despite Patrick Harvey and Lorna Slater making absolutely desperate pleas to say that they're better off remaining inside government where they can influence decisions. This is their way of saying, please help us keep our nice £100,000 a year ministerial salary. But of course, this isn't going to butter no parsnips with the Greens rank and file membership. They're saying it's pointless saying that you are inside and you have influence when clearly you don't. You don't have influence over the SNP's climate policy, and you don't have influence over the SNP saying that they're going to stop the mass sterilisation of children. And so what do? Well, they're going to have this emergency general meeting in probably the next 2 weeks or so. At some point, it has to be arranged. And then that's when they'll sort of bash all this out and they'll come to a vote whether to stay or to leave. But at the moment, the Butte House Agreement is hanging by an absolute thin thread. At the end, Harvey and Slater only agreed at the very last minute that they would have and agree to this, to attend this EGM. They didn't want to. That in itself has annoyed the rank and file membership of the party. They're saying they should have come out straight away and said, OK, look, this is what it is. But it seems to the people who are sort of in there that it is simply them trying to hang on as long as possible to keep earning that kind of money. Because they both know, as everyone else knows, they'll never earn anything like it ever again in their lives. It's their only chance of ever sort of earning it. So that's why they're desperate to remain. But it has been a tumultuous week for the Greens. Obviously, the pause on the puberty blockers that was announced following the CAS review. And then that major rollback by the Saturday Girl over climate targets, moving them from 2030 to 2045. And even then, in 2045, of course, they'll still be unachievable. But this has led to this massive backlash, which has forced this EGM to be called. And as far as the mass ranks of the Greens are concerned, it's time to call it a day. Now, they had this really big online meeting on Thursday. And this is where the future direction of the party was decided. This petition, as I say, was launched, and they needed 50 signatures. They got over 100, so that's all sorted. But they all went out, and they were all venting. I don't know if you saw this, but they've all been out on Twitter and Facebook and everything. They've all been venting their sort of frustrations and anger about what's happening. And it's just, how can you put it? It's just wonderful to watch these people fail. These people basically divide themselves in two. We've got the rank and file saying, no, it's time to go. And you've got those receiving the big wages saying, no, we must stay. But it is very cowardly of them. They need a new start, and they need to show that they've got principles. When they were just a Green party, just concerned with the environment, that was bad enough. But when they've moved to this extreme Marxism and pushing an agenda against children, which would see most normal people locked up as dangers, especially Maggot Chapman, with her view on what should happen to children, weird woman, she needs to be on a register for the remainder of her life. But this is what's happened. So they've moved to this extremism. People don't like it. They are toxic to the SNP, and they see the SNP as toxic to them. It's a wonderful thing. It is one hell of a toxic mix. But who knows? It should all be over within a couple of weeks. Given the fact also that with all the trials and tribulations within the SNP, there's no guarantee, of course, that Humza Yousaf will stay there. Humza has tied himself very, very much and aligned himself very much with the Greens. He can no longer be seen to want to get rid of them, no matter how toxic they get, because that would make him look stupid for backing them 100%. He was saying they're worth their weight in gold. Well, they're also worth their weight in shit. It's the same weight, but whilst people want the gold, they don't so much want the shit. And that's where they found. But if Hamza is removed, which, well, one's got to say it is becoming ever more possible and probable and likely, then who will take over? Well, it's likely Kate Forbes and Fergus. And if they do it, they'll throw the Greens out regardless. They don't like the Greens at all. So either way, it looks like this marriage of inconvenience is hurtling towards the divorce courts, one way or another. Depends on who fires first, doesn't it? But it would be the end of the absolute majority of the SNP in Holyrood, which will give the opposition parties a nice, warm, tingling feeling, I think, because all of a sudden, all the atrocities that the SNP have tried to get through suddenly will stop happening. It'll just be, how can we put it? Government by agreement. They'll be forced into compromise, into getting the other non-extreme parties to agree with their policies, which will weed out all the extreme part of it. Harvey and Slater can be sent off to the back benches where they can weep into their lattes and then look at the people on the front bench earning far more money than them at last and hating both of it. And, you know, it's likely to happen. They've got far too much say over the basis of their votes, because obviously they only got a tiny, tiny number of votes, but with that, they became kingmakers, and they've been given far, far too much influence and power for that. And that's the trouble when you allow extremist parties with extremist views, and make no bones about it, they are Marxist views, as well as being sort of an absolute and total danger to children. They should never have been given this, but they have, and it's time for them to go. And one only has to look at the policies. The rent controls will destroy the housing industry already, with forcing builders to put in heat pumps is destroying the housing industry, and it would get worse the longer the little imp is there and doing these things. You want to build Scotland. You want to build Scotland's economy and not shackle it, not cut it off at the ankles simply because tiny little men have tiny little dreams, little wet dreams of power. It's time for Harvey to go. He can take Geoffrey with him. The pair of them can sod off, walk into the sunset and take the Greens out of power with them. And it's about chance, because at the moment they're just having a scorched earth policy and they're setting fire to everything. Thanks very much for listening. I hope you have a marvellous day, and goodbye.